By the way, mas malimot ko, remind sa inyo later, we will be having our first long test this coming Friday. So please be prepared, and I hope that you will listen paspasa uy. Elkin the intro? Yes, may Elkin na dayon ta. Anyway, I'll ask permission first ha. I'll be having a recording. So mag-record ta karon sa klase. Mag-record ko daan sa klase. So, sige na lang. Anyway, where are the others? Please turn on your camera. I can only see Miles and Marinelle. Ay, hindi ko. Anyway. Sige na lang. Can you see the slide? Okay. So, our topic this afternoon or for the rest of the week will be about the national income. This is the second topic for macroeconomics. We started with the circular flow of the economy. And for us to begin our session on national output, I will start with a question. So is the Philippine economy doing well or doing poorly? What do you think? Do you think are we doing well? Okay ba ta? Economically or dili? Dili? No? We're not doing well? Sige. Let's hold your horses later na siya. Let's park that answer for our next topic. I think we will get to identify the answer to that question by tomorrow. Yes, we will have it tomorrow. So for this afternoon, before we begin, we will have an activity, and by the end of the session, we will have a quiz. So please make sure that you listen, because by the end of the topic or this session, you will be having a quiz. So we will start with an activity, and this is a graded activity. Digana kayog activities karon ay. We will start with a car race trivia, and this is just additional points for the group. So you will be divided into 5 teams, and then all teams will race to answer the question asked by posting the answers in the public chat. Now here's the twist of the trivia game. For the trivia game, I will not be posting the questions. So you have to listen carefully. Yes. So I will be saying the questions, and you have to listen for you to be able to answer the questions. Okay? And then the first team to give the correct answer will be able to move forward. Since the answers will be posted in the public chat, everything will follow sa ako ang command. Yes, sa Game Master's point of view. Kung makaya ni mo lang ka, pwede rin kayo kung makatype ka og answer wag activity, okay ra sad. Uy, nagtutrush yun niya. Nagtutrush yun si Lawrence sa muka. Sige, di ka masad na mabtag isa ka oras siguro imong toothbrush, no? So, again, no one can contest my point of view, because I noticed when we had the activity, dili man gay same ang order sa pag-send sa messages sa atua. Pwede nga, lahi ang mag-una sa ako, lahi sa uban. So, we will follow my POV, okay? My point of view or my perspective sa akong chat box. Okay? So 5 correct answers will cross the finish line and win the race. However, since we only have 10 questions for the trivia game, there will be a possibility that we cannot cross the finish line, or a team cannot cross the finish line. So for the grading, we will have it, or for the point system, we will have it whoever is the first one on the lane, then will receive the perfect score na points, and then the second team will receive this point, and lastly, the third team will receive this point. So for the point system, 15 points for the perfect score for the first team, and then 13 points for the second team, and then 10 points for the third team. since there will be a total of 5 teams, consolation prize na lang ganyan last 2 teams. For the effort, of course. Diba the consolation prize is consolation points. Anyway, so here is the, so ang i-flash sa screen will be the ranking. Ano siya ranking? Murag status sa mga sakyanan. Murag ginatawag siya car race trivia because you will be represented by a car. The team will be represented by a car. Wait lang. Akong i-share. Here is that. Nakita? Oh, diba? So since there are 5 teams, each team will be assigned with a certain car. And then for for you to know the status of kinsay nasa ranking, you will see it on the screen. That's why the questions are not posted. So, tanaw na to kinsay on the lead sa sa car race trivia question. Okay, are you ready? So again, please wait for my go signal and then make sure that you use the public chat in answering. Otherwise, I will not entertain your answer even if you are the first one to give out the answer. And then, again, go signal ha. Wait for my go signal. Are you ready? Ay, wala pa data na divide ang class. Sorry. So for it to be easier for me to assign you, alphabetical na lang nako. So since there are, 18 na makabuo. Wait lang. Kinsay absent? Aside kang Popoy. Okay, si Isa. Sige. So for group 1, we have Jade, Rupert, ay pinagay mo 18. So naay duha ka teams nga upat na duha pud ka teams nga tulo ra ka members. So we have Popoy, Rupert, and Popoy. Ayun si Popoy. Ano gana? Pangita ko ni Popoy. Jade, si Jade, si Rupert, si Lawrence, and si Gab. So you will be the first team. Second team, you will be yellow team ha for team 1. And then second team, you have Ian, Miles, and Von. You will be blue team. And then we have Ira, Judy, Janessa, and Kendi. That will be orange team. Pauline, Kate, and Angel will be red team. And Nor pala. Pauline, Kate, Angel, and Nor, red team. And then Aliana, Marinelle, and Sophia will be green team. So please take note ha. I'll be asking you what team you belong later on. Kasi malimot manggod ko. Okay? Ready na? Are you ready? Okay, here is
Excuse me, Chair.
yes, question.
Moadto pa mi sa website, Chair. Sorry, Chair. Gikan ko nawala sa meet.
I know na lang nga. I'll just be saying the question and then all you have to do is give out the answer in the public chat.
Okay, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Any other questions? Wala na? Are we ready? Okay na ta? So please listen carefully with the question that I'm about to say, and then please take note to wait for my go signal before giving out the answer. Diba natin sa pag-division? Diba? First question. True or false? Dali kay true or false. The Philippines is the second world's largest producer of coconuts. Again, the Philippines is the second world's largest producer of coconuts. True or false? Go. Okay. First on the list, sa public chat, we have Miles with true and everyone said true afterwards. Okay, so the answer is It's true. Yes, the answer is true. So, advance si Blue Team. Blue Team, makalangga, no? Tama ba ka?
That's true.
So, we have here on the lead, Blue Team, the answer is true because the first world's largest producer of coconuts is Indonesia, followed by the Philippines on the second spot, and India sa third spot. So, Philippines also export or produce mangosteens, papayas, and bananas. So that's for the first question. Second question, true or false? Singapore remained the major source of OFW remittances, in 2020. All over the world, ha? Kanang mga padala sa Filipinos all over the world. It's Singapore remained as the major source of OFW remittances across the world in 2020. Again, wait for my go signal. Go. The first one is, we have Kate. Sige, Kate belongs to, asa ka nga, ano lang ga? Group 4 ka
Red ata, Chair.
Red, no? Red. Okay. So, red. The answer is false. Very good. The answer is false. No, false not. It's not Singapore. It's actually, any idea? May idea sa country? It's actually Dubai. It's USA. Ang usually gahatag og remittances kasagara kay from USA. It's actually 40.7% of the total OFW remittances. Pero dagan gyapon sa ano man na UAE man na, 'di ba? Part si Dubai. So, dako gyapon. I think next on the list is UAE. Anyway, next. So, on the lead we have blue and red team. Next question. Let me just create a division. What do you call, this is identification. What do you call the goods and services produced in other countries? Again, what do you call the goods, services, and intermediate products produced in other countries? Go. Then, the first one is actually Pauline with the answer. Sa maning true, Lawrence? Ano tong true? Ano itong true lang ga? The first one is Pauline with exports, Rupert exports, Ira imports, Sophia imports, Candy export, import, export. The correct answer is, it's imports. Ang first kay si Ira. Yes. Anong imports man? Produced in other countries. And then dalon diri, di ba? Import man na. Kung export, produced here in the country and then sent to other countries. So we have Ira. Ira, you are from Orange, right?
Yes, Chair.
Ay, grabe. Grabe ang labanan. Sige. Next question. Nabali. Yes, nabali. Sayang. This is another identification. Dali na ni ma-search. If I know, search mo. GDP or gross domestic blank. Again, GDP stands for gross domestic blank. Ay, wala pa yung go signal. Wait lang sa, naghatag na kang idea sa mga people. Go! The first one is Pauline with product. The correct answer is GDP stands for gross domestic product. Pauline is from, sige ni mga team lang ga. Pauline. Juan ka no? Red. Tama ba, Red? Red. Okay, sige. Next question. Multiple choice. So listen to the choices. Please write the letter of your answer. Exports of the Philippines account for almost a third of our GDP. So 1/3 ana sa GDP is from the exports. Question. What is the major export of the Philippines? What is the major export of the Philippines? A, iron ore. B, electronic products. C, coconut. D, banana. Again, A, iron ore. B, electronic products. C, coconut. D, banana. Go. First one is we have Miles with C, Lawrence B, Pauline B, Aliana B, Jade A. The correct answer is before it's letter C. But now it's letter B. Updated na. It's already electronic products. Sa una, the lead tayo when it comes to coconut and bananas actually. And then karon it's because most of the raw materials in making or manufacturing gadgets kay naaman diri sa atua. So dili ta gahimo og gadget, kita lang ga provide sa raw materials. So mo na sa electronic products. So the first one to give the correct answer is Lawrence, and Lawrence belongs to the first group. So you have yellow team. Habol green team. Number 6. Question number 6. True or false? God bless our trip, Samo. Philippines is classified under lower middle income economy. Again, Philippines is classified under lower middle income economy. True or false? Go! Grabe ka, pas-pas ba? Kadjut lang, balik sa ko. The first one here is Ian. Ian with true, followed by Pauline, Vaughn, and Rupert. So Ian belongs to, asa na grupo si Ian gani? Sa inyo, ani, Miles, no? Blue? Okay, so advancing is the team. It's true. We are still currently under lower middle income economy and wala pa na siya nag-change. Number 7. True or false? The economy of the Philippines has steadily grown since 2019. Again, the economy of the Philippines has steadily grown since 2019. True or false? Go! First, we have Miles with true, followed by Lawrence with false para unique again, and then Vaughn false, Ian true. The correct answer is false. It's false. O, di ba? Para unique lang daw. Nga nung false man? The answer is false because, di ba, we hit the rock bottom because of the pandemic in 2020. So, we did not really had a growth during 2020. So, dili siya, walay steadily grown. Walay steadily grown since 2019. Nagkaano ta because of the pandemic. So, the answer is false. Madeira is from group 1. Yellow team. Okay, next question. True or false pa rin? In terms of labor and employment here in the Philippines, employment in services sector, employment in the service sector has the biggest percentage of the country's GDP? Again, in terms of labor and employment, employment in services sector has the biggest percentage of the country's GDP. True or false? Go. The first one is, gabi, kon si Miles. First si Miles, and then followed by, ano ba to, Candy? Bakit dalawa answer mo lang, ga? And then true, false for Lawrence, true, Vaughn. Anyway, the answer is true. So, sakto. Actually, kabantay mo, usually, gid sa ato kay manual labor, more on mga laborers, gyud. That's why it has the biggest percentage of our GDP in terms of employment sa services sector. Kung sa other countries, they are already doing mga, very high-tech na only machines are doing the labor of kanang sa production. Kita kay nagyapuntay, ang ilaan na lang kay QA, quality, assurance, 'di ba, para ma-make sure lang nga sakto ang gibuhat. Pero sa atoa kay pati pag-pack, pagkuan, tanan, ang role lang sa machine is to lead from one place to the other. So the answer is true. So advance for blue team. Nangunguna ang blue team. Next. Number 9, true or false? GNP per capita or gross national product per capita is a measurement of GNP divided by the number of people in the country. True or false? GNP per capita is a measurement of GNP divided by the number of people in the country. True or false? Wala pa. Relax lang ta. Go! Sige ba? Tanaw na to. Balik ta. First one, we have Gabi Lawrence with true. Pauline with false. Vaughn with true. Miles with true. The correct answer is true. So, humahabol na naman ang yellow team. It's true, actually. GNP per capita is GNP divided by the total population. Next. Last number. It's identification. Give the top trader of the Philippines. Give the country as the top trader of the Philippines. Go. Say top trader sa Philippines. Ba? Actually, the answer is the top 3 traders of country. The top 3 country nga traders sa Philippines, kay we have China, Japan, and US. The top one is China. O, correct si Marinel. O, diba? At least, hindi na pag-iwanan ng green. Oh, and that is actually the last question. So, for the ranking, we have, since na may mga tie, we have blue and yellow with 15 points, red with 13 points, and orange and green with 10 points. Oh, walang napag-iwanan. Walay consolation prize, uy. Diba? Ako sa, i-take note para sa pag-record na ako. Wait lang. 9 HM. So we're done. Okay, so what's the point of those questions? Actually, those are trivia questions that I hope you will learn to appreciate, and at the same time, you will remember as we go along with our discussion, because most of the things that we will be discussing are related to those things. So brace yourself. So for our objectives this afternoon, we will continue with the discussion. Now that we are done with the activity, by the end of the session, we will have a quiz. So please listen carefully. So there are two, certig yun. So there are two objectives that we will achieve this afternoon. First is define GDP and GNP as a way to measure national output. So since you already heard about GDP a while ago during the trivia quiz, we also have GNP. And then after that one, we will differentiate GDP and GNP. So define first and then differentiate. That's the only thing that we will do. So to start with, our topic is all about measurement of national output. Let's define things first. What is national output? When we say national output, it is actually the total income of the country. Ano lang ka-simple. When we say national output, it's the total income of the country. Why is it called national output? Because the national output is the monetary value of all the goods and services produced in the country. Walang output ang tawag. We just get the monetary value to get the income or the projected income for that specific year. So what is measurement of national output? The measurement of national output is a process wherein we measure the total income of the country or of an economy by summing up, by adding the total amount of goods and services produced in an economy. So, para dali ra ma-remember, when you say measurement of national output, it's the process in calculating or measuring the total income of the economy by adding up tanan goods and services na produce. Okay? Klaro ba? Am I too fast or vague ra ba kayong explanation? Klaro ba? Are we good so far? So there are two ways to measure. There are two measures of the national output. The other one is GDP and another is GNP. So when we say GDP, it stands for Gross Domestic Product. For GNP, it stands for Gross National Product. So muna siya ang duwa ka buok nga gina-measure in our economy, GDP and GNP. But let's define first GDP and GNP before we differentiate. What is GDP? Okay, so medyo ano nako. Ira, can you read the definition, please?
The sum of the monetary value of all of the final goods and services produced within a country's borders at a certain point in time.
Okay. Now, thank you lang ga. In measuring the GDP and the GNP, para lang, ano lang siya ha, added information. It is measured, the GDP and the GNP is measured annually. What do you mean by annually? Every year na siya. So when World Bank or other institutions release the ranking of the GDP and the GNP of the countries, ginabuhat na siya every year. So lahi ang GDP sa 2019, lahi sa 2020, lahi sa 2021. I-rank na nila ang mga countries from the highest total GDP to the lowest total GDP. Inana nang ginabuhat. But for the Philippines, for us to know how well our economy is doing and kumusta man ang performance, ang production for a certain point in time, instead of doing it annually, para gradual ang updates. And at the same time, if ever there are mishaps or problems or things that needs to be addressed, they do it quarterly. So para makitaan po unsay plano for the next quarter. So when you say quarterly, they do it every 3 months. So quarter 1 is January, Feb, and March. Quarter 2 is April, May, June. Quarter 3 is July, August, September. And quarter 4 is October, November, December. So ginabuhat na siya sa PSA or Philippine Statistics Authority quarterly ang pag-account sa GDP or the Gross Domestic Product and the Gross National Product. Okay? So again, ayaw mo kalibog ha. Pag-ranking na gani sa tanan countries, annually na siya every year. Pero if to know the performance of the Philippines lang for the entire year, ginabuhat na siya gradually every quarter. Klaro? Are you still with me? Are you with me? Okay, so what's
Yes.
happening GDP? GDP is the total monetary value of all the goods and services here in the country. We are talking about the Philippines. When you say within the country, then that is within the Philippines. Lahi ang GDP sa Philippines, lahi ang GDP sa US, lahi ang GDP sa China. Take note of that one. So when we say again GDP or gross domestic product, it refers to the total final goods and services produced within the country, regardless of who produced it. Okay? Nasabtan? Klaro ba? For you to easily remember what GDP is, we know that the meaning of GDP, or it stands for Gross Domestic Product, to facilitate the remembering, you remember it with GDP as gawa dito sa Pilipinas. So all the goods and services made here in the Philippines, regardless if it's sold or manufactured by a foreign national or a Filipino, basta diri sa Pilipinas, GDP na siya gina-account. Okay? How about GNP? GNP stands for Gross National Product. Nor, can you read the definition for us?
The sum of the monetary value of all the final goods and services produced by a country's citizens at a certain point in time.
Okay, thank you, Nor. You see, it's quite similar, right? Pero there's a distinction good with GDP and GNP. For GDP, produced within the country's border. So within the country. When you say GNP, it is produced by a country's citizen. Meaning by the citizens, by the people. So inana si GNP. Regardless if asa si person, that Filipino citizen is in US, in China, in Russia, in Ukraine, or unsa para asa pa na siya dira, basta kay render siya service and Filipino siya, then that is accounted for the GNP of the Philippines. I'll give you an example later on for you to understand. For you to remember, GNP, it stands for Gross National Product or gawa ng Pilipino. Okay? So again, unsay difference sila duha. I'll give you an example. Di ba GDP is made within the country's border. If we talk about the GDP of the Philippines, gibuhat siya sa Philippines. If we say GNP, it is GNP of the Philippines, it is produced, the good or the service is produced by a citizen of the Philippines. So a Filipino citizen. Example, ako. I am a teacher here in Cagayan de Oro. Diba? So when we say GDP, it means that the service that I render is here in the Philippines. So GDP siya, oo or dili? GDP, part sa GDP akong service, oo or dili? Yes. Nganong yes man? Where am I rendering my service? Here in the Philippines. Diba? GDP is accounting for the total monetary value of the goods and services produced here in the country. So, GDP siya. How about GNP? Is my service as a teacher part of GNP? Yes or no? Yes or no? GNP?
No.
Yes? Yes? Ano yes man? Kai?
Filipino man ko
Exactly. Because I am a Filipino citizen. Therefore, my services will also be accounted under GNP. So it's GDP and GNP. Both GDP and GNP. Ngayon GDP, kaya I'm rendering the service here in the Philippines. And at the same time, GNP sa siya because I am a Filipino citizen. Nasabtan? I'll give you another example. Let's say, Janessa. Janessa is already a doctor. Example lang ha. Is a doctor. What do you mean counted ang half? Ay, no lang nga. Wala may half sa citizenship. Nationality siguro na. Like half Filipino, half American. Inana. Ang citizenship is like your identity. I mean, kanang ano bitaw? imong pagka-citizen sa isa ka country, regardless if you are a half Filipino or half Chinese. If imong citizenship is Filipino, Filipino ka nga citizen. So lahi na siya langga ang nationality and citizenship. We are talking about citizenship here. Ang mga dual citizens, they are accounted for both the countries. Nga naman, they are paying twice manggod for taxes. Kung dual citizen ka, magbayad kag tax kung asa ka na belong nga citizen. So, regardless if asa ka nag-work, yes, magbayad kag tax sa imuang kung asa ka na belong na citizen. If you reach at the age of majority, which is 21, then go work na ka. So, kung dual citizen na mo, nang gasto kayo, mahimong dual citizen. Muna ang uban, ilang gina-renounce ang ilaang, or gina-omit nila ilang isa ka citizenship. They only retain one citizenship. So, inana na siya. Na, did I answer the question? Okay ta? So, dual pod ang iyaang pag-account sa GDP, sa GNP. Sige, another example. Kita to, Janessa. Let's say Janessa is already a doctor and work in the US. GDP, GNP, both, or wala?
GNP, teacher.
Okay, it's GNP. Very good. Dili siya GDP sa Philippines. Nga naman, asa day gibuhat ang service?
US, Germany.
In the US. Makount siya sa GDP sa US. Dili sa Philippines. Okay? And then for GNP, since Janessa is a Filipino, then part siya sa GNP of the Philippines. Clear? Am I clear? Sabtan? Okay, sige. We will have a series of practice questions here, and then after this one, we will have a quiz. All you have to do is answer if it's GDP, GNP, both, or none. Like, dili siya GDP or GNP sa Philippines when I say none. If both GDP siya and GNP of the Philippines, pwede po GDP lang, pwede po GNP lang. Okay? Sige, first, practice question. Nestle Philippines, GDP or GNP, both or none? Both? Just to give you an idea, ha, Nestle Philippines is not a Filipino-owned corporation. Remember, asa ganinigi ka ng Nestle?
Switzerland.
Yes, Switzerland siya. So it's only GDP. So sakto siya, it's only GDP because Nestle Philippines is not Filipino-owned. I mean, Nestle is not Filipino-owned. Dala sila branch here in the Philippines. So it's GDP. Next, a Filipino teacher teaching in South Korea. Okay, very good. GNP. Ganong GNP? Filipino teacher. So, citizen siya. GNP. Pero, it's not GDP nga naman. Where should be the GDP padulong? Mapadulong siya sa? Yes, sa South Korea siya nga GDP, dili sa Philippines. Nasabtan ba? For those who are not responding, I hope nakasabot. Suot Korea sa mo. Nasabtan? Pero, sige, this one. Filipino dentist in Carmen, CDO. Okay, very good. It's both GDP. Anong both GDP and GNP? GDP kay the service of being a dentist is rendered in Carmen, CDO, which is part of the Philippines, and GNP kay Filipino man ang dentist. Okay? Next. A Chinese working in Cebu. Okay, very good. It's GDP. Kay Chinese, no, not GNP. Kay Chinese, but Cebu man, so it's GNP. This one, OFWs or domestic helpers in Saudi Arabia. Okay, very good. It's GNP. How about this one? A Portuguese working in America. Very good. None. Asa man ang GDP? Asa padulong ang GDP? Okay, very good. Sa America. Okay. So, klaro ba? Am I clear?
Teacher.
Yes, Langga. Question.
Parang siya medyo nalibok ko sa Nestle Philippines yung ano, GDP lang siya. Siya, di ba siya if the Nestle Philippines na po Filipino workers, ano siya?
Kani?
Sa Nestle Philippines siya.
Ah, yes, Langga. But we are referring to the ano itself. The
Ang
company
company.
itself. Not ang singalan, ana, ang kanang goods lang individually. Kaya kung kana siya, like ang pag-manufacture sa goods, of course, we know na it's by the Filipinos. Pero like Nestle, in general, padulong yun ang income ana sa owner sa Nestle Philippines. Ay, Nestle Philippines sa Nestle, which is in Switzerland. Muna nga GNP siya sa Switzerland. Klaro lang ga? Na-answer na kami question, Miles?
Thank
Okay,
you.
sige. Questions? Clarifications? Klaro ba? Nasabtan? So let's have a class recap and go over with the objectives. Kana lugar mag-concert sa other country. Kana siya lang ga, of course, they are paying man good. Same na gyapon na siya. The entire profit, I mean, out of the entire profit, a part of it will go to the income sa katong country, and then sa mga tao dayon, which is where they, let's say for example, ikaw nag-concert ka sa other country. So you have a part of the profit will go to you, and then kana ang kuan dayon for the GNP, pero a GNP of the Philippines, and then since a part of the profit will go to the country itself kung asa gibuhat ang concert, dira pud ang kuan sa GDP. So same concept lang gyapon siya. Kaya ang profit man ang basis ana. I mean ang total income. So dili siya mapadulong sa Philippines ang GDP. Kay dili man sa Philippines gibuhat ang concert. Pero padulong siya sa mga tao, which is kung kinsa ang nag-concert. Gets lang ga? Kaya a part of the profit will go man sad sa organizing committee to that, I mean, sa ana nga country where nahitabo ang concert. Okay? Klaro ba? I hope I answered your question. So, sige, let's try to go over with the objectives. Can you now define GDP and GNP? Ma-define na ba ang GDP and GNP? Klaro na si GDP and GNP? How about can you differentiate GDP and GNP? Clear so far? Okay, so with that, let's have a quiz first before we end the class. This will just be very quick. Same lang yapon sa atong gibuhat. You just have to identify if it's GDP, GNP, both, or none. So here is the link. Update, 12 submissions already, and it's 4:05 p.m. So it's already time. I'll just be waiting. I think this will close at exactly 4:10. So whether you're finished or not, then your submissions will automatically happen. And with that, are there questions before I leave? Naa ba? May question? Wala? Klaro na tanan? So that's it for today. Thank you so much and God bless you all. Goodbye, everyone. Keep learning.
Goodbye,
Right,
sir.
sure.